Whoa. You look really lonely.
But that's okay, because I am too. Or I was. Still am sometimes. In this video, I'm going to show you why your loneliness is killing you. And not just killing you metaphorically, but actually how it can shorten your life on this earth. Come here. Come here. Come here. If you make it to the end of the video, I'll tell you about my personal story. And how I got over being so lonely. I say so because I still am sometimes, but it's better. Let's get started. How bad is loneliness in the world? A study done in the United States found that 52% of people reported that they sometimes or always feel alone, with 16 to 24-year-olds feeling the most lonely out of all age groups. In a separate study, loneliness was found to increase risk factors for mortality, aka death. Quote, loneliness is as dangerous as smoking half a pack of cigarettes a day. Well, why are we so lonely? A lot of things are causing us to be one of the most lonely and isolated generations to date. While many think that the loneliness crisis arose from the start of the digital age, it actually began in the 1950s, when social dislocation was on the rise. This meant that we became much more mobile as a society, giving us the option to live further away from our families, friends, and workplaces. That period set the stage for what came next, the digital revolution. What if I told you there was an international machine that grows and feeds off of chemically altering your brain function to make you less focused, shorten your attention span, and also leave you craving for more? Would you believe me? Well, they go by several names, including TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and even YouTube. We are so lonely because we live in the digital revolution and the attention economy. Almost all social media companies are designed and thrive on holding our attention for as long as possible, because the longer we look, the more ads there are to roll in front of our eyes, and the more money for them. A study found that more than 7 in 10 very heavy social media users are considered lonely, versus 52% of light users. All of this was made worse by the COVID pandemic. A study found that many participants felt lonelier after the pandemic than before it. It's important to distinguish between depression and loneliness. Loneliness is the feeling that I'm not as connected to people that I want to be, which is also different to isolation. Isolation can be intentional and not necessarily bad for your state of mind. For example, I can isolate myself by being on top of a mountain, but feel great being alone. Meanwhile, depression is a serious medical illness that affects how you think, feel, and act. A lot of authors consider loneliness to be a subset of depression, meaning lonely people can also suffer from depressive symptoms, like excessive sleepiness, excessive fatigue, lack of focus, and poor appetite, to name a few. So what I want to say is that it's not entirely your fault. There are systems that exist in our world that make it harder for us to find genuine connection and relationships. But nobody can save you but you. So, how do you work against all these forces and break out of your shell to become the best version of yourself? The first thing you're going to do is limit your social media use. If you're looking for a quick solution, the best thing to do is to delete the social media apps completely. This is tough because you probably have a scrolling addiction, like I did.
Oh yeah.
If you'd rather not do that and prefer to limit your usage, then apps like Opal, Rescue Time, and Flipped offer great free and paid solutions. Second, improving your physical health also complements your mental health. So exercising for 30 minutes a day can instantly boost your mood by releasing endorphins, which is what your body releases when it feels pain or stress. Third, pick up a hobby. This can serve as a great mood booster and solution to finding like-minded hobbyists. I personally like to play the drums. I book a drum studio once a week to learn a song I've been listening to. And when you teach yourself and begin to improve, that evolution serves as a great boost to both your self-esteem and confidence. Finally, this is the Holy Grail. Are you ready for it? The cure to loneliness is to stop being so lonely. Studies show that people with strong social bonds are far less likely to die in any given year than people without those bonds. So, try your best to seek out connections and relationships. And I recommend starting with the apps. Apps like Yubo allow you to chat via live video from the app without giving your actual phone number out. Or Bumble BFF, which is the same concept as the dating feature, but for platonic friends. Other apps like Let Me Know or Wink are also good choices. I'll link all of these apps down below. If you're determined enough to help yourself out of this pit and apply some of these methods, I can almost guarantee that you will see improvements in your mental and physical health. Remember, the intention of these methods is to bring your state of mind and body back to equilibrium. Constantly being in a flux state of ups and downs is what we are trying to avoid. Finding that balance between your career, your friendships, relationships, and your time alone is most important. My own story was long and hard fought. It took me years to realize what I was doing to myself. It didn't help that I was isolated in my environment. I was living back home after my job went remote, except I was the only one living in the 3-bedroom house. My habits of using weed as a crutch for boredom, taking mid-afternoon naps, and not taking care of my health by eating junk food all contributed to my depression at the time. But I think I have a high tolerance for discomfort, and those habits were harmful, but not harmful enough to warrant any change in behavior for years. It's interesting looking back, because I can't count the number of times that I've told myself that I want to change. I'm gonna do it, only to cut out the toxic habits long enough for me to forgive myself. These toxic habits all contributed to my loneliness, because they made me feel a sense of shame, and that shame made me want to isolate myself even more. But in retrospect, my situation was never as bad as I thought it up to be. It usually never is. I was fighting a war inside my own head. I struggled to keep my mind together because all I had to think about was my thoughts. The one thing I saw as most defeating over time was constantly negotiating with myself, rationalizing with myself that if I decide to get high now, I promise I won't tomorrow. And maybe sometimes I did follow through, but other times I didn't. Constantly breaking my own promises that I told myself I'd keep is what slowly withered away my self-esteem and confidence. Then doing that for long enough made me realize that I had enough. It finally came to a point where it was painful enough for me to decide to do something about it. So that's what I want to help you avoid. Here's exactly what I did to help me once again start enjoying my solitude. 1. I set up focus sessions each morning from when I wake up until 1 p.m. No scrolling, consuming YouTube or TV. I started by buying a phone lockbox and eventually moved to phone limiting apps. 2nd, I walk my local park every other day, doing laps to clear my head and remind myself that there are other people just like me, just trying to clear their heads and get their steps in. 3rd, I set up a meal with a close friend or a family member once a week to check in with, bounce my ideas off of, or just talk to and catch up with. 4, I gave up all smoking, vapes, weed pens, and heavy alcohol consumption. These were my primary tools of socialization, and I found myself to be far happier once I stopped abusing them. 5, I began to organize meetups centered around an activity. I began playing basketball as a way to break a sweat, but also enjoy and improve with friends and people around me. I really hope this helps in some way. Drop a comment below to let me know if you had a similar experience or would like to see me cover another topic next. I'll see you next week. But only if you subscribed.